Hello, 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 and welcome to the Kansas City Snap LLC. This is Mocha Myers, and I am breathing in that good prana, and I'm putting it out to the universe, and I want you guys to receive it, and I want you to apply it to your lives as you choose to do so. Today on my show, once again, I have another one from Kansas City, Kansas. I have our chief, our second black African American chief of police, Kansas City, Kansas. Chief Karl. How are you, Chief Karl Oakman?
Oh, I'm good, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm so honored. I just want to say that first. I'm honored to be in the presence of you and have the opportunity to speak with you and discuss the things that are going on within our community and what we can do as a village, as a community to change. But first and foremost, I want to let everybody know this. We're gonna start this off because this is about the chief. Um, did you watch that game the other day, the Kansas City Chiefs?
Let me tell you something. I haven't missed a Chiefs game, whether it was on the radio, on television, or in person since I was 10. Every game.
God.
So, of course, I watched it.
Travis, so you're listening. If you're listening, because you are one of my friends, you heard the chief. He hasn't missed a game. So we just want to give a shout out to those Chiefs for keeping it real and beating on those good old Raiders.
You know how you say it. How about those Chiefs?
So tell everybody about the story about Chief Karl. Where you come from. Everyone has a story, but no one knows your story.
Well, yeah. Before I start off with my story, I have to, first of all, you got to always give thanks to God,
Always.
who's protects you and watched over you.
Yes.
And then my wife of almost 30 years,
Yes.
Riddell, and then I have two boys. One's 18 and the other's 22. My 22-year-old's an officer with Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
18-year-old's in college. He's studying to be a professional pilot, so that's what he's doing.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's how I look now, but I had to tell you how I got there. I was born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay.
Didn't have much growing up. Lived in the projects in KCK. My father died when I was 6. And really what was important about that were a lot of times when we look at community and police relationships, it's really been tested and it's kind of strained.
True.
But I would have to tell you, growing up, this is about 1975, when I was 5, 6, there was an officer who would come in our neighborhood. And this was a white officer in a predominantly black neighborhood in KCK. And this officer would always stop, take the time, talk to the kids, really check on us and make sure that we were doing what we were supposed to do. And we really developed a relationship with him. And I'll tell you why that was important, because I remember there was a time where we had a shooting up the street. We saw it. So detectives came down and was talking to us. They thought we were kids. We didn't know anything. They were nice enough, but so we didn't really tell them anything. So then we saw our neighborhood officer who came down and he said, hey fellas, what happened? And we told him everything. We told him the color of the car, the direction. He had to tell us, that's enough. But it's funny, but it talks about, that's an example of how building those community relationships, you can get information. So, and like I said, shortly after that incident, my father died. I was about 6. And so my mother, and then shortly after that, a couple months after that, our house caught on fire. So my brother and two sisters, they got out of the house. This was nighttime. Upstairs, whole bottom's on fire. Mother gets out, realizes that I'm still I was asleep upstairs. So my mother goes back in, gets me, and I ended up getting some third-degree burns on my ears and head area. And so she's able to get me out the window and save me. And in the process, she had to go out and broke both of her legs. Now, my mother always struggled with asthma. So by her getting involved in that fire with that smoke inhalation, it really affected her. And she ended up about 4 or 5 years later, when I was 11, she ended up passing away. Some contribute to the complications of when she helped me out of that fire. So, I then ended up, and when I look back on it, my sister, who at the time when my mother died, she was 17, hadn't even graduated high school yet, and she had to take care of me. I was 11, my other sister was 14, and then my brother was 16. So when I look back on that, putting all that on a 17-year-old who haven't even graduated high school yet, because my mother died in February, and then my sister ended up graduating that May. Mm-hmm. So it was tough, but I never forget, my mother always told me something. She said, I'm not going to tell you what she used to call me, but
why not? You know what? I can't
anyway,
stand when people do that.
She told me, she said, always have hope, regardless of what you're going through. Once you lose your hope or you let someone take your hope away from you, you're done.
That's true.
And that's something that I always kept. So played football in high school. There's a coach, his name's Doug Bolden. Used to be a football coach at Harmon, ended up being a principal at Sligo. I met him a couple months ago again, and he really stayed on me, as well as I had uncles. But I made it through high school, made decent grades, went and played football, and then I ended up going into the police department, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I applied to KCK, but they weren't hiring at the time. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, and I worked there for almost 30 years, retiring as a deputy chief and then becoming the chief of Kansas City, Kansas. And my brother, who I mentioned earlier, he passed about 3 years ago. So, and he struggled his whole life with drug addiction, in and out of jail. And I never forget, about a week before he passed, he had congestive heart failure from all the drug abuse. And so I was sitting there and I said, his name was Henry. And I said, Henry, why did you live your life like this? And I said, if you had to do it over again, would you change? And to my surprise, he said, it was rough, I struggled, but he said, I wouldn't change a thing. And I said, why not? He said, because by me taking the arrows, you became the man you are, and I would never change that. And if I had to sacrifice my life for you to have a better one, then I feel like I've been successful in my life.
Wow.
And that was my older brother.
That's just deep. Don't make me cry. Live. So it sounds like you became a police officer because of the love that was shown to you by another officer as a child.
Absolutely.
And that's where empathy comes in.
Yes. And I've applied that my whole career in law enforcement at every rank that I was able to achieve. I never forget that feeling that, a person who at the time of authority made me feel like I was important.
Yes. So basically, as a child, growing up in Kansas City, Kansas, coming from the projects, you're seeing everything that's going on, and we're talking Crips, Bloods. We talking break-ins, people getting robbed in broad daylight. We're finding people, police officers, they're making bogus calls to the police, and the police get there, and then they shoot the cops. That was some deep times, and it's starting to kind of seem like it's going back to the 90s a little bit. Do it feel like that to you?
Well, I think that what we have to remember is the people now that are adults are the same kids of those people that were involved in a lot of that stuff in the 90s.
And so with you being the chief, and you saw as a teenager okay, role play.
All right.
All right, we got 15-year-old Karl. And you see who these gangs, these kids, they doing, people just doing whatever. If I was a cop, I would, what?
Well, one, you want to.
No, we talking about what with 15-year-old Karl.
What I would have did?
What would you say? Because see, what we get into is, the change that you want to make in the community.
Right.
Because you saw it as a teenager. So when you saw something happen as a teenager, what 15-year-old Karl said, if I was a cop or when I become a cop, I'm going to
establish a relationship and work with kids to let them see there's a better alternative. Because one of the things that really protected me and saved me, I stayed busy. I was involved in sports, football, track, and so I didn't really have a lot of time, and I was focused. But I think from a police standpoint, which is why we have a great Police Athletic League in KCK, which I need to mention something we did there.
Shout out to the athletic department.
Yeah, and what we did, when I got there, I worked with Matt Tomasek, who's the director of our Kansas City Kansas Police
shout
File.
out to Tomasek
and
too.
what we did is we created a driver's education program where I sent a police officer to school to be trained as the driver instructor. So now you're in the car with an officer showing you how to drive. So what's important about this is not just teaching you how to drive a vehicle, but how to maintain your registration, how to keep insurance, how to pay a ticket when you get a ticket, so it doesn't follow you for 50 years.
Right.
And things like that, but also that interaction with the young people and the police officer talking about things that may not have anything to do with driving. That may not have nothing to do with driving. But it's all about, so going back to 15-year-old Karl, it's all about building those relationships. And I know there's people always say, well, you gotta be real. And people think being real means always being negative.
Exactly.
I mean, you can say what you need to say
in a positive way,
but bring some positivity to it.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we all know there's issues around policing.
Right.
I mean, no one's, we don't have blinders on. We know there's issues, but we really need the community and police to work together. And I tell people, there are groups out here that do not want to see a successful police and community relationship.
That's true.
And I fight that every day because I'm not going to let them change what I want to do and what I want my department to do. And we have a new slogan with the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department.
And what's the slogan?
It is KCKPD, Building Community Ties. And TIES stands for transparency, integrity, engagement, and safety. And
I like that.
And that's what we're we're focusing on in everything we do. But it's very important, and I really take a lot of emphasis on kids because, you know, in life we're always, not to say they don't need rescuing, but we're always rescuing adults. And we look at kids and go, we ain't got time for that. Let's focus here. So what I've done with our police department this summer, we had two youth police academies, and I did it in KCMO too, but I brought it to KCK. We ended up having about 40 kids go through the program. Excellent. We did a big football camp, the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, in July. We had 223 kids.
Oh, was it fun?
Oh, it was great. And not only did we focus on football, but we talked about violence prevention, conflict resolution, and anger management, which are some problems we're having in the community. And you mix that with a gun. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You mix that with guns, and I mean, that's a disaster. So, and we worked with the Boys and Girls Club. They gave every kid at the end a free brand new pair of football cleats and football gloves. So we had a great time, had a lot of community sponsors, and that was the first annual. So we'll do it every year. We'll be doing it next year also.
I'm going to look forward to it because
Yes.
I'm gonna be there. I'm going to have to reach out to a couple of the TV newscasters too and have them out there because I think that is something great. Definitely needs attention to because
Yes.
our children don't have really too much to do after school, and if they don't have anything to do after school, one thing I'm a firm believer on is that I'm not going to let the world raise my child. Although it takes a village to raise a child, I'm not going to let the world, that TV, that's the world. I'm not going to let them raise my kid. We do have to understand that some of these children now, they are products of, unfortunately, their parents were drug addicts, probably still are drug addicts, and they're left at home to not only take care of themselves, but probably feed and take care of the younger ones as well. And then at that point, they don't have anything else to do, you know. But, okay, well, let me go join this game.
Right,
Because this is what
right.
I'm seeing on TV, you know, and this it looks so right. It looks like, you know, I've watched shows where kids say they'd rather be in the streets because and be homeless because they find more love in the streets and homeless people than they find at home. And our parents need to take the time out to interact and engage with their children and find out what's going on in their lives, and you know, just dedicate one day to not having your phone in your hand just for once, and interact with your children so you can find out what's actually going on in their lives. Shout out to the Boys and Girls Club for doing that. Shout out to the athletic team for even doing that. I've had community people come out to me and tell me that we should do in Wyandotte County a lot of more of those community interaction things that we did at the community center where the district attorney Mark Dupree came out. We had the ice cream truck, KPRS was there. You know, the kids had something to do. They had spades games going on, giving things away. I mean, the community was happy. A lot of people had recognized who I was and stated, hey, can we get this more often so the kids can have more things to do? Because due to the pandemic, it's not a lot of things to do. And then, you know, money-wise, they don't have the funds to always pay for their children at the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
Then they have to go to work, some of them. And what are the kids left to do? They don't want their kids to just be at home. They want them to interact. So, you know, can you just, you know, give a little bit more enlightenment on that program? Because I do see that it's boxing in there as well. And we don't want to leave the young women out as, you know, either when it comes to interacting with the athletic department.
Yeah, and what we're doing is looking at a lot of different things to do there. They have art. They have a garden and grape vineyard in the back, so they're teaching them a lot of different skills. And one thing, as you mentioned about the community, and that's something we did this summer. I partnered with Wyandotte County Sheriffs and had them get involved. We did 4 community engagement events this summer across Wyandotte County because, I'm the chief for all of KCK. So I'm going to have an event in the Northeast. I'm going to have one in Argentine. I'm going to have one in Turner. I'm going to have one in Piper. And that's what we did. And we kicked it off last spring, with a peace walk we went from 5th and Washington to 5th and Parallel. We walked and talked about violence. And you talked about drugs. And one thing that I really want to stress is that we have a new fight with drugs, and it's affecting all races,
yes,
all economic status, and
yes,
that's fentanyl. And I will tell you, as a law enforcement member who was a detective in the drug unit in the early 90s, we learned a valuable lesson on how we handle crack.
Yeah.
We didn't handle it the correct way, but we are working to make sure we handle this fentanyl crisis the right way, and that's really using those who are users as resources to get to dealers and suppliers, because that's where your problem is.
I had to talk about the fentanyl with my 12-year-old the other day, because it is getting out of hand. And the ministry that I'm with, the Princess House, Joshua House, Sarita Grant Ministries, she is a activist for the opioid addictions among the people. And so I was showing my daughter those pills. They was showing them on the news. And I was telling her, I said, if you see anything like that, don't you take it. And she goes, "Oh, Mom, why would I want to take that? They look like dry, sucked on Skittles." Okay, so that's from the mouth of a 12-year-old. So other 12-year-olds are thinking the same way. But my child, I'm having a talk with my child. Another child might say, okay, they probably been in the pack too long and they just melted a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to take it.
Have that discussion.
And it's very important.
With your children. Very important. It's very dangerous. Just in KCK, so far this year, we've had 28 people die of fentanyl overdoses. So we're really on the front lines of this, and we are making headway. We're recovering a lot of pills. And one thing that I really want to stress out to the public, what we're starting to find when we recover fentanyl, we're recovering marijuana in the same search warrant. So this stuff is sometimes being laced. The marijuana is being laced with fentanyl. So you need to be on the lookout for that and be very careful, because these are not chemists that are mixing this. So we've had situations where 2 kids split a pill, and one gets the bad half and ODs and dies, and the other's fine. So that's a risk that you really don't want to take.
Can you explain to parents that may not be aware of the things to look for within a child to detect if maybe, they may be taking some type of drug? I want to know that myself.
Yeah. Well, one, well, first of all, kind of what you said at first is key. You got to know your children. If you don't know your children, you're not going to know the warning signs. One is the most obvious is any change in behavior.
Right.
Running with different people that they're normally not running with. Gone from the house, missing for days at a time. and just a change in their attitude, their whole disposition. And I wish I would have brought some pictures so they can see, but normally they're light blue pills, and with the stamp of 30, which most of the time they think they're taking Percocet, but it's fentanyl. We call them illegal fentanyl pills, because they don't have Percocet in them, they have fentanyl in them. So that's one of the things to look at. But any kind of change in your child's behavior, and then a lot of sleeping, because it's an opioid base, so it will cause them to be tired, sleep, that kind of thing. So any change in their sleep patterns, attitude, who they're hanging out with, times they're coming home, changing, things like that.
Well, I still believe in coming in the house before the street light comes on.
If you have one.
If you got one on your block.
You know, some of those street lights haven't been repaired since the 80s.
You better be out. You better be opening up that door by the time that street light comes on.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what change are you bringing to Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas? What are we gonna see in the future?
Okay. Well, we've done quite a few things. So when I first got there as chief, the one thing that I really stressed, because sometimes police executives miss what's really going on. Oftentimes we just automatically jump to, I'm gonna have this great community engagement program, this great community program, which we have those. But what I wanted to do initially is make sure that I created internal value, that the employees felt in value, that they felt they were in a positive work environment. Because you can have the greatest community program, but if you're taking a disgruntled officer and putting in that program, you're not getting anything out of that program.
No results.
So you want to make sure you got a positive workforce, create a positive environment, give them input, and then we've put in community plans. Some right off the bat, when we talk about violence, we created a violent crime accountability meeting. We kind of call it shoot review, where all the detectives, federal partners, probation, parole, DA's office, everyone's in the room to talk about these cases, so that one, there's accountability for the detective, and two, that we're going down the right course for the right suspect. And then when we've identified this suspect, we got resources there that can take this suspect off the street. So that's one thing. We've trained some officers in risk for retaliation. So when we do know that a shooting has happened, we try to get to the family members, the friends, to make sure that, because oftentimes they know who shot them, they don't want to tell us, they plan on going back and just continue that cycle of violence. So what we've put in place is a mechanism to really reach out to those individuals, to give them services, counseling, whatever, just to intervene in that retaliation piece. Another thing we started, the Cold Case Squad, which KCK PD is the only police department in the metro with a full-time cold case unit that's dedicated to investigating old homicides. So hopefully here in the next couple months, we're going to have some good news coming out of that Cold Case Squad. Other thing we created is our Hispanic Community Liaison.
Yes.
As you know, KCK has a large Hispanic population.
Yes, we do.
So I have a captain who's bilingual, and what he does is he works in that community, one, to communicate police events, to communicate ways of reporting crime, and let that, whether victims are documented or not, that they can still come and report. It's your police department, whether you're a citizen or not. If you're a victim, you have a right to come forward and report that crime so we can investigate. So he really works with the community to make sure that they understand we're here to help, not to hurt them, or deport them or anything like that. So, and we've also had 2 Spanish language citizens academies, which was really interesting because after our first one, we started seeing members who went through that Citizens Academy going to our police community events where in the past they never would
Yeah.
go to those.
Yes.
So that's one, and we've done. We have, like I said, we have our youth academies that we did this summer. So we're doing that, and then our community policing unit that KCK has is always involved and engaged in doing a lot of things in the community. Our victim services unit, we're there to help victims of crime, whether they need support, counseling, financial assistance. We're there to help them. And then our police athletic league, we've done a lot there under the direction of Matt Tomasek. As I mentioned, our driver's ed program. So we've been pretty busy. We got some stuff coming up now. We're creating a state-of-the-art real-time crime center where we can get real-time intelligence information from crimes such as cameras, gunshot detection, all of that in one area where we can pipe that to the officers in real time. So hopefully we can prevent crime and then stop crime.
So, speaking of crime, I was asked to ask you, what can we do, or what can the owners of businesses, like such as gas stations, what can they do to limit the homeless people from, being around their business, because it is affecting their businesses? Yes, of course, we know the no loitering sign of
Right.
first and foremost. But when they tend to ignore that and they feel that calling the police is doing no justice, then what's the next step they should take at that point, because it's getting out of hand?
Right. Well, the first thing is that we can do a CEPTED, that's crime reduction by environmental design. We can, they can get a hold of our community policing unit, and someone can come out and do an assessment of their business. Because sometimes you don't know when it's your business. You may have certain things that's attracting a particular population to your gas station. So that's one way. Second, in KCK, we have a homeless outreach coordinator. If you call our community policing unit and report that, they'll try to work with those individuals to get them services. One thing we did, and this one I forgot, is in KCK, when I first got there, I approved municipal IDs. So what we do is, like, what happens a lot of times, and you wouldn't even realize it, a lot of homeless, one, they can't get services, they can't get other things because they don't have an ID, because
Right.
they've been homeless for so long. They have no idea where their birth certificate
Right.
is, how to get one. So the police department offers municipal IDs where, we vet them through our systems, and we give them an ID and it's a joint program through the state of Kansas. So once they get that ID, and for, I believe, after a year, they can then apply to get a Kansas ID.
Oh,
But
okay.
this ID will allow them to get some services
Yeah.
to help get them off the street. And I know the Salvation Army in KCK was kind of working with our community policing unit to get some members. There was an example of one individual that had got on hard times, and I believe he was a truck driver, stopped working, but he had worked long enough there to have a pension, so he was on the streets. Well, come to find out, once he was able to get an ID, he was able to start getting a pension that he didn't know he had. So it's just little things like that. So we try to do more than just throw people in jail. We try to see what we can do to correct the issue where it's not reoccurring. Because, you throw someone in jail, they're just going to get back out and do the same thing. So
That's
we
right.
try to fix the problem instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Do you think that, what do you think that among your police peers, they are coming in that it's all about changing the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you came in, can you see the change of mindset in some of your people?
Absolutely. When you get a new chief, you don't know what, but this is the key.
Because the change starts here before
Right.
you can make the people change.
Right.
You got to
Right.
believe what you putting out.
And the first thing is what I tell. It starts with the leader.
Right.
It
That's
starts
right.
with the leader,
Mm-hmm.
and then you gotta. It starts with the leader. Then you gotta tell your people that they're valuable.
That's right.
Internally, that they're valuable.
Yes.
You know.
Sometimes they need to hear that.
Right. And what people the people don't understand, they always talk about this, blue wall of silence. Yeah, probably in the 90s. But sometimes internally, we treat each other worse. People have no idea. So that was one thing that I really wanted to focus on, giving them input, creating a positive work environment. And then you change that mindset to where they start realizing, I'm not here to police the community. I'm here to serve the community. And
I'm
that,
appreciated.
Yeah, and that's where I'm really seeing the change. And it created an excitement to where people were excited to go to work.
Yeah.
You wasn't getting screamed at and hollered at, and you're gonna make mistakes in policing.
In life, period.
But one thing I can tell the community, we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to be honest. We're going to be honest, and hopefully we don't make as many as we should, but we got things in place to make sure that people are held accountable, that we are doing a lot of things to change that mindset, to really make KCK, because most people know KCK is the second largest police department in the metro and the second largest police department in the state of Kansas. So I always tell the officers, act like it, be professional like it,
right.
Be courteous, and always do your job and understand that this is your community. Be committed to your community.
Come to work with that cup half full every day.
Yes.
Gratitude, empathy, sympathy is something that we all need to survive. I mean, to live. I mean, to not have that in your heart and soul, I just can't fathom not being able to live without that. Where you see yourself at in the next 10 years? You think you might move on up? How higher can you get?
Well, in policing, chief is it.
I say higher, I mean like get out of this.
Well, here's the thing. If you look around the country, there's police chiefs that go from this city to that city to this city. This is not a job to me. This is a rare opportunity where I left as a young man from a city I loved, and I made the choice to come back and commit to this city and give back to the city that took care of me when I had no one to take care of me. So
why would you leave then, sir? Why would you?
Yeah, this is my home.
Yeah.
I want Kansas City, Kansas to be the best city in the metro. And I tell people, don't let these outsiders continue to feed into this negativity about our city.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great city. This is one of the most diverse cities, matter of fact, in America. And it's reflected in our police department. Like I said, KCK has one of the most diverse police departments in the Midwest outside of St. Louis and Chicago. And I love this city. It's my home. I got to come back, and I'm thankful for having a stellar career in the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. And that gave me the opportunity to come over to KCK as the police chief. So as long as I can do good and make a difference, I will be here.
I want to talk about making a difference on the sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do about that? This is just it's bothering me. I know what I see. I know. What can we
Well,
what can we do as a community besides, you know, keep our eyes open? I know I can recognize, but some other people don't recognize. But us in the police department, what are we doing to being able to control that? I know it's coming up from Baltimore DC, Baltimore, Kansas City, Texas, out the country.
yeah, it's all over, and that's one thing where, as I talked about earlier, about really spending time with young people
Yes.
and giving them a sense of worth. And the other side of it is we have the tips hotline.
Yes.
So this is one of those things where it's kind of hard to, because it's such a secret society. That's why tips are really important. If you see something and you think it's not right, call 474-TIPS and report it. We get all those tips, whatever jurisdiction, and we investigate those. So don't think you call and it just goes on someone's desk. No, those tips are immediately filtered. Matter of fact, when we get tips for KCK, it comes directly to me and several other commanders. And what I do is I go, are you following up on this tip we just got from the tips hotline? So it goes directly to us. So excellent resource. I wish more people would take advantage of it, and you can do it anonymously.
What's the number, just in case someone that is watching?
It's 474-TIPS.
And that,
TIPS.
of course, I'm just stating that I know it, but we do have a lot of people that just moved here to Kansas City, in Kansas and Kansas City, Missouri, that don't know that. Yeah. We have talked about so many things, and here we are approaching the cold season, and hopefully we'll be able to have the Jack Reardon Center opened up again for the homeless people, so that will kind of eliminate the theft problem during the approaching holiday season. Since everything is going up all across the country, we just need to, just keep it real, followers. People are going to do what they got to do to eat. But at the same time, we do have pantries and food kitchens and things like that, but we don't want to put the homeless in a position to have to go there. So do you think we're going to be able to open that center back up this year? Because it's getting ready to get cold.
Well, I know the unified government is working on a plan. I don't know exactly where it's going to be, but they are working on a couple shelters. And back when you talked about the theft, this is one thing we've had a problem my whole 30 years in law enforcement. We cannot get people to lock their cars, put their valuables in their trunk.
That's true.
Don't leave your purse in the front seat. Don't leave your cell phone in the front seat. Don't leave your laptop. Get the change out your bin, because they'll break in your window for pennies and nickels, dimes, quarters.
Yeah, because that dollar could buy them a Bud Ice 24-ounce can.
Something, but yeah, just lock your cars. Put away your valuables. It's simple.
Yeah.
Because if I'm looking to break in a car, I look in the window, I don't see anything, I'm going to the next car. If I see a laptop or phone, I'm figure out how to bust this window. And then not only do they leave the purse or laptop there, the door's unlocked. So lock your doors, hide your valuables, and go on about your business. That way you'll come back out from enjoying your relative, your dinner, whatever, and not have to go make a police report.
Can we talk about, everybody that's on here? We already know about the big case going on Can you just comfort the people that are following me, the loved ones, and the people that care that
Well, I can tell you
we're
this.
gonna get this taken care
It's
of?
it's an ongoing investigation. So I can't really comment too much, but
Right.
it's not over just because there was an indictment. There's still an ongoing investigation, and I can tell you this, that um, the current Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, and like I said in my statements, that you know, the indictment showed that no one's above the law. And as chief of the KCK Police Department, I've made it clear that no one's above the law. And I've put in things like I mentioned earlier about our shoot review, our violent crime accountability, to make sure that we are going after the right people. And I've brought the FBI in to conduct color of law training with all of our sergeants, all of our commanders. That means all our captains, majors, and deputy chiefs. And we are cooperating to the fullest with the FBI, and we have been. So, and we will continue because we're going to give them everything they need that we can give them to make sure they do a thorough investigation. Because first of all, the indictment's nice for some, but it really doesn't matter if you can't put a case together to get the person convicted. So, and like I said, and always remember, he hasn't been convicted yet. So there's just certain things we can't do until someone is convicted. But rest assured, the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, the FBI, the Wyandotte County DA, we're not ignoring anything, any of your information you're giving us. Whatever you give us, we forward it straight to the FBI. In fact, when the news broke of the investigation, and we said you can contact the FBI or the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, regardless of what some people think, most people contacted us with their information, and we forwarded it to the FBI.
Yes,
So, and like I said, the Kansas City, Kansas Police, we work well with our DA, our Sheriff's Department. Everyone's trying to be transparent. This is our community. We want the best for our community.
because speaking for the people, everybody's tired of things getting just swept underneath the rug.
And obviously, if you haven't noticed, I make sure that I don't sweep things under the rug.
Yes,
So
I have.
yeah, so we will definitely. Now I'll tell you this: can anyone in here say that a Galutski's never going to come again? No one can say
No,
that.
but they might come with a different face.
But what I can tell you this is, when we become aware of it, that person will be held accountable, whether that means discipline, termination, or criminal charges. It will happen. And I've set clear expectations to every member of the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department.
So that means, hey, if they're going to get on that horse, they're going to take those reins and they're going to ride it.
Right. I tell them we're here to serve the community, not to abuse the community.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Chief.
Been my pleasure.
Before we leave, this is KUAW Radio, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So I want you to tell me, what does knowledge mean to you?
What does knowledge mean to me? Well, what knowledge means to me is using your experience that you've gained in life to do positive things.
Understanding.
Understanding is knowing what to do with that knowledge that you've gained.
Yes, that's so powerful. Wisdom.
And wisdom is, you kind of got an equation here. Wisdom is, once you have the knowledge and understanding, being able to then give that back to others. That's wisdom.
So where did all your knowledge, understanding, and wisdom come from?
Well, I'll tell you this, some experience, some my wife for 30 years, that's where probably 90% of it come from Riddell, who, yeah, she just makes sure
Can
that
you give us hi, Mrs.
Riddell Oakman.
Miss Oakman? I'm about to ask your husband the secret. What's the secret? 30 years. What's the secret?
Well, the secret is compromising. And I'm going to tell you really what the secret is.
Besides her cooking the good food?
She cooks the good food. Although she might get mad when I tell you that. She can really cook. But when we first got married, her favorite dish was chicken and rice. But no, she's great. But no, really, I think when I look back, and keep in mind, this is not a 30-year marriage. This is a 30-year marriage to a police officer.
Okay.
So I think some of it was our first 7 years we didn't have kids, so we really got to know each other.
Yeah.
We got to know each other. We got to spend time with each other, and that really taught us how to deal with conflict, because two people do have conflict sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But always, I'll tell you this. There's a song I love, old soul music. Otis Redding, #1. Believe it or not, I'm a strange person, because Otis Redding and Elvis Presley, my two favorite entertainers.
I see you like to dress up as Elvis
Yeah.
Presley.
But he had this song. It's called Lover's Prayer. Came out in 1967, I believe.
Can I get the hook that you like?
But what he says, there's a part in the song where it says,
We gotta sing it
"What
now.
can the matter?"
Come on,
Oh,
come
I
on.
can't sing.
Come-
Let
just
me
come
try to
on,
sing
try.
like Otis. Well, I can't sing like Otis. So, what can the matter be? It can't be too serious. We can work it out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, and he put that little country spin on it.
Yeah.
What can the matter be? The matter can't be too serious. We can't work it out. That's what he said.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
Love will.
This is
keep
my
it together.
lover's prayer.
That's
I
so
hope
sweet.
it reach my ears. This is my lover's prayer. Yeah.
Miss Oakman, you hear your husband bragging about you. I just want to thank you for coming. It's been such an honor. It's been such a blessing. You
Been
gonna
a
come
good
back?
time.
You gonna come back in 3 months?
I'm going to come back in 3 months.
Okay. This is the Kansas City Snap LLC. I'm Mocha Myers, and this is,
Chief Karl Oakman.
and we are breathing in that good prana, put it
Yes.
out to the universe, and we want you guys to receive it and apply it to your lives as you choose to. This is KUAW Radio. Much love. God bless. Ciao.